Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Haley Clover. It's another episode of CMO Weekly, the podcast brought to you by OpenFortune. OpenFortune has changed marketing forever by putting ads into fortune cookies and distributing them through over 100,000 restaurants in over 30 countries worldwide. In a world where consumers are seeing 3,000 to 5,000 ads a day, OpenFortune is helping burn your brand into their memory. So thank you to OpenFortune for making this episode possible. Okay, I am really excited to welcome multifaceted. So we're welcoming a storyteller, strategist, an Emmy-nominated producer who's making sure that tech and humanity stay connected. Ariel Wengroff is the Global Vice President of Communications at Ledger, one of the world's leading companies in digital asset security. Before crypto, Ariel made waves in media and advocacy, serving as publisher broadly at Vice, executive producing Women with Gloria Steinem. So cool. And co-founding the inclusive beauty startup ARFA. She's been named to Forbes 30 Under 30 and serves on the board of Lesbians Who Tech, all while continuing to push for representation and innovation across industries. It's an incredible bio, and the music just started. We're like, she's here. We're ready to go.
I'm ready. Well, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be chatting with you today.
Yeah, I'm excited to learn just a lot about you and everything you're doing with Ledger. But truly, I'd love to just learn a little bit more about your past, because you started obviously in the media space and have since parlayed that into crypto.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
I mean, I actually started originally in politics.
Oh, okay.
And got really fascinated at the idea of direct democracy and what are ways to reach people to create change. And then realized, okay, within DC, within politics, there's so much red tape. But media, you can tell a story and it can reach millions of people at once. Like the idea of YouTube originally, I was like, this is incredible. And I got a chance to work with Vice, which completely changed the game in documentary and then what then became citizen journalism. And at a certain point, you do all of this work and you realize, oh, now we're serving the duopoly of Facebook and Google. I'm not serving the individuals I once met. And I was at this crossroads where I realized, individuals don't care if it's media or earned media. They want someone to help lead their identity. They're distrustful of governments, of institutions. And at that point, brands really had a shot. And that's why I got interested in making brands and having people be the faces of them. And throughout that journey, I started to realize, wait, I've had the unique opportunity to learn how to be both a creative and an executive. Most of my friends are creatives that aren't empowered to understand the business dynamics. Systems are saying that they're changing, but they're not. They're taking new tools and trying to retrofit them for the same outcomes for themselves, especially on the business side. And I started to learn about the creator economy through that lens. So when I learned about blockchain and crypto, I thought, this is the first intergenerational opportunity for change that I've seen in so long. And how rare is it to be early enough at a technology where having a seat at the table means you truly change the outcome. And I could have kept doing what I was doing, but I thought, I really want to take this bet. And to me, Ledger, which secures, your digital life, felt like a perfect origin to start because it's mission-oriented, it's a big problem to chew on, and you still need to work with creators and different individuals to actually help reach those goals. So it was kind of like the perfect merriment that I never saw coming. And it's all about what is the medium, not what is the method. And that's been a really good thing not to be so tied to in my career. So it led me here to being at this conference with you.
Which is so funny because we've had interviews all day and this music hasn't been playing once. And now it's blasting.
It's jazzing
I
us
honestly
up.
think that it's your energy. They were she needs background music.
Yeah, totally. I'm down. I'm into it.
So it's interesting that parallel kind of was there for you and felt like a really great fit. Were you scared at all in having to learn the knowledge of crypto and just what how it all actually worked? Or did you already have a base understanding just personally and kind of an interest in the space?
Well, I've always been kind of the youngest in my group. Yeah. So when I was in politics, it made no sense. When I was in media, I had never shot or edited. And literally one day, Shane, who was CEO at the time, was like, cool, Ariel's gonna, run this. And that ended up being a $3.6 million project with Gloria Steinem, right? So I've kind of always taken the approach of, if you raise your hand, you can probably figure it out.
Love that.
And when it came to crypto, I was like, okay, this is actually about taking something that feels incredibly intangible and making it have, to your point from the intro, that human connection. So you just have to be open to learning and asking questions. And that actually, I think, really bonds you with your colleagues and with the industry, because if you show them, especially as a marketer, like I'm not a marketer, that's not my background. So if you show them that you want their expertise as part of what you're bringing forward, I think it's really helpful, actually.
Yeah. Now, before we talk a little bit about Ledger's brand voice, will you give everybody a bit of a better understanding of what Ledger is, what it does?
Yeah, so Ledger's the world leader in securing digital assets. It's been around for about a decade. We actually secure more than 20% of global crypto. We have a retail business that actually in the US, we're in every Best Buy. So we're 15 minutes away from every American. And our products make it so that we're a secure signing device. So if you're logging in like a YubiKey, or if you're signing for a crypto transaction, we keep your crypto secure because we keep your private key offline, unlike exchanges or things like that. The phone today wasn't built to understand what it would have to secure with this revolution of value that we're experiencing. And we also have that for the enterprise side of the business as well. We're in 160 countries. We translate to 10 languages, and we have the number 3 education platform globally, because we really believe every person should have the choice of whether or not they want to participate in this space. It's the future of financial literacy, actually. And so it's been really a great journey to see it evolve over the last 10 years.
That's awesome. Yeah, very much the leader in this space. Yeah. I think that's great. When you're working globally like that, how much does that change the strategy? Because I know that the crypto adoption here in the US is much smaller than it is in Asia and some of the other countries. So how do you decide where you're going to focus and where you try to grow?
Well, one of the best things I learned at Vice was think global but act local. So you have to show up nascent wherever you are. The US has always been our top market. So even when things were really hot in Singapore and Dubai, and we were putting a lot of attention there, we never left the US. So now we're absolutely doubling down even more on the United States. And I think it's really about understanding that approach. Like, for example, in the US, a lot of individuals use crypto because it's an extra source of income, it's a bet, it's a chance. They believe that it's changing the financial system fundamentally, but most people who are using it, it's not make or break. If you're in a different country, actually, especially with inflation, government volatility, unbanked individuals, this is literally how you could survive. And we've heard so many stories of, oh, I got out of Ukraine with my ledger and it helped me save my value. I was in Brazil when economic instability hit and I had my crypto on my ledger. My child's future is secure because of that. And these are the stories I think that aren't told as much in the States, and we really miss the opportunity to actually understand the real utility and impact versus it seeming like a gratuitous grab, which is really unfortunate because crypto was created around financial freedom and giving people another opportunity outside of the current constraints that they have.
It's so interesting. I think that's really true, just as somebody that, is a novice in the space. Yeah, you don't hear those stories, or you don't necessarily understand that somebody could be using this in the way that someone in the States is using a bank.
Right. Exactly. So this is a really good point you bring up, because people say this all the time. Americans have too much insurance to understand why you need crypto. And that's amazing, right? Like, the American institution has created a system where you're insured for a certain amount of money. But in most countries in the world today, that's not how it works. And when I'm an American that moved to Paris for work. And I can tell you, setting up a bank in France, going through that process and learning what it means to try to pay your American credit card with a French bank account, let me tell you, it's not possible. You suddenly learn about all of these frictions that you've never had to deal with before. And it makes you a lot more empathetic to individuals who are just trying to figure it out day to day. So I think crypto is born out of the idea that within the internet, you have permissionless money. And when the crash happened in 2008, it's like there should be an alternative. So how do you live in a society where you're trying to follow a system while also existing in a world that is outside of it? I think that's a very difficult thing in an American structure that is so oriented around like following some of those foundation truths.
Right, and kind of what's comfortable.
Yeah, totally.
You know, it's definitely being able to be comfortable with the uncomfortable in this situation until you've learned it, or until you've
learned it. But you know what's interesting is like 48% of Americans have Bitcoin, 14% are likely to increase. In the next 24 months, we'll probably have 1 in 2 Americans that have it. About 1 billion people globally have interacted with Bitcoin in some capacity. And younger people, as we know, are 2 times more likely to influence their parents' purchasing power. So,
which is that not the craziest stat ever?
It's so true, though.
When I was born in the early 90s, and I could not imagine looking at my parents and saying, you need to buy Microsoft stock. I didn't have the foresight, which you're totally right. Kids now can learn so much earlier about financial literacy and all of these options that we just maybe didn't have the access to.
Exactly.
Wow.
I mean, there was that period, I don't know if you remember this, where people would say, it was a joke, like, how do you talk on the phone? And younger people would go like this, and like would go like this. And I think we're in that era of, where's your value? Like, where's what you care about? Where's your identity stored?
Yeah.
And it's not one app, it's not one thing, it's all over the internet. So, okay, what do you do with that now? How do you know it's yours? What do you own? If you lost access to your Gmail or your iCloud account, you lose access to your memory bank?
Yeah.
There was this amazing interview with these high school students who weren't allowed to bring their cell phone to class. And one of their complaints around that was, well, how will I remember it? And I think it's just this important indicator that like technology is it's an undeniable like percentage of like your full value today. So you have to take that responsibly, and Ledger really believes that it'll be that sort of like secure bedrock for all aspects of your digital life, and that takes time. Every information revolution involves hardware. There's a hardware unbundling and rebundling, and we're in that period of that unbundling now, and we'll see how that evolves over the next decade.
So when you're talking, let's say the brand voice, right? Are we looking to that next generation? Are we talking to them most, or are we trying to help, let's say, my parents who hear this and go, I don't even know where to start? Like, how do you cover that big gap?
So, Ledger is usually not bringing people first into the space.
Okay.
Most of the time, exchanges are really spending a lot more to get folks, and they're probably transacting like $10, $20, $100, and then they're seeing over time, right? And they might not ever use it again. They might have a Coinbase account or a MetaMask, something like that. For us, these are people who have more than $100 in crypto, probably Bitcoin. They know they need to secure it. So they've been educated in some form. That's why we started our educational kind of platform, because we know educated customers are more likely to become Ledger customers.
Yeah.
And then they're going to stay with us for the ride. So once you learn who's secure and who's not, you're not going to deviate too far from the path, and that's something we don't take lightly. And then now I would argue we're doing a lot more financial literacy for younger people, because teenagers have ledgers. People are buying ledgers for their kids. And when you go to college, you open a bank account, you get a credit card. Okay, well, why wouldn't you get a ledger? Why wouldn't you put 3 months of your savings on it?
Well, that's such an interesting point, because there are so many rules around starting, let's say, a Roth account for your child.
Right.
Why not do it in this way now? My, brother about to have his first child as a first-time aunt, that could be my gift to the child instead of X, Y, Z.
You wouldn't be alone. We actually partnered recently on a kid's book where it's an ABC of crypto, and we are W for wallet.
I need to buy it.
I'll send you one.
Okay.
But people are doing it, and I think kids are so savvy. Like, they get the technology first, and they know that it's a tool. If you spent every year of the last decade getting even $20 in Bitcoin for someone, the return on that versus the S&P is completely different. And why not? I think we don't give financial advice. I'm not giving it now, but I really believe that it's important for people to have agency in their future, and what you don't want is to be left out. And what's really been fascinating for me is the people who come up to me most before the brand was really growing, who would like see my email or overhear a conversation. Right. Taxi driver, hotel reception, people who were like the chef.
Hard workers looking for a way to be able to make money in a different way than what they're currently doing.
Yeah, people who are looking for like a second shot at the American dream.
Yeah.
And so I really believe in that. Like,
I do too, and I don't think that anyone should ever not have the same opportunities to be able to get to that point, because it is just a fact of life that some people are born into better situations than others, but this does even the playing field, if there are places like the kind of educational aspect of the business that you all have for folks that can come and learn about it.
Yeah, and we're not all or nothing. You don't have to use us for everything. You can use a bit of us, right? And that's okay. Like, choice is the ultimate goal, and we'll always do that without compromising on self-custody or privacy for our users. And we'll have to see how the industry continues to evolve, but I think it's only going to grow from here. It's still very early. And as you can see here, there's like 30,000 people at the conference. And, it's all walks of life.
For sure. I actually think most of the people that have walked by the booth and just stopped to ask questions, they're just enthusiasts.
Yes.
They're just people wanting to learn. They're looking for new tech. They're trying to figure out where that next big thing is going to be.
They're proselytizing. I mean, the truth is, I always say for us, most companies who are out there, they're the gospel, we're the Bible. As you learn about crypto and as you learn about Bitcoin, you're going to need to secure it. Ledger is the best way to do that. We don't need to be the entry step. We need to catch you as you come in. And we have to be friendly. Tech does not need to be a dystopic future. So we need to really feel like a safe and welcoming place for all levels of entry. And we have to simplify language and make it feel inclusive for all forms of education.
Yeah. So what does the future look like?
I think there's a future where, we announced yesterday that we have our new U.S. debit card with our partner banks. I think there's a future where you get your paycheck, you deposit it into your ledger, you separate it, you have your savings account that's in Bitcoin, you have a percentage of spend in USDT, and then you have your native currency of the country that you live in. You operate most of your capacity that way. You probably have a little bit more ownership and control over where your identity is. You're verifying through a ledger or some kind of secure signing device who you are, what age you are, without having to give that every time you're on a website. And you have more opportunities to actually have control over your information, because it's the first generation where all your value is online. And so what does it mean to have control over that, which, doesn't feel like a Black Mirror episode. So I think that's really our goal in the space, is to play a role in that. And, more and more countries, I think, will be participating in Bitcoin and in crypto adoption. So we'll just have to continue to see how that evolves at the state and national level.
Yeah, it's a very interesting way to connect everyone all over the world. It's such a different way to...
Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, I had a pen pal in another country, but now on the internet, it's cool, where it doesn't matter where you're from, but then I live my life every day as if I'm part of this system. There's a lot of network state discussions and things like that. I don't think that, the global world order is going to be completely rewritten. I think that people have different asset classes, and that makes sense. This will be one of those that people can utilize in their portfolio. And in other countries, it'll give them an opportunity to rethink their banking experience.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. If someone was looking to kind of break into this world a little bit more, do you have any tips on where they should start in terms of education, or some resources that you loved or even used while you were learning?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little biased. I learned a lot from Ledger when I joined, so I would go to the Ledger Academy.
Okay.
We have different courses based on easy, intermediate, or hard, and we also have a glossary, so you can learn really easily that way. I think it's very helpful. I would also just really encourage people, if you're looking at TikTok, if you're looking at YouTube, just to look at certain terms around security, around the fundamentals of Bitcoin. I think a lot of people are getting involved right now and they don't know why it started.
They just know it's worth a lot of money.
Right, they're let me get in, and so I would say read the Bitcoin Standard, read a book by Lynn Alden, look at what are now the classics, and do it at 2x speed on your audiobook, but it's important to understand why things exist, and it's important to stay, tuned in. I would say we look at things from a positive future. So I think sometimes Bitcoin can be seen as something that's only one political party or one type of thinking. The truth is most people got into this space because they believe in choice of thought. So I think that's also important for folks to remember.
Yeah. That's amazing. Super interesting. I'd love to get into the rapid fire questions round.
Yeah.
I am actually going to go on as my beginner lessons and learn because it is super interesting. And I probably am at that level right now where I'm like, I know how much Bitcoin is worth. I'm watching it. I own a very small, wallet and have a little bit of, but I don't totally know why. I purchased certain things. It was like a friend's recommendation or all of that kind of stuff.
Exactly. But that's perfect. There's always time.
Rapid fire, first thing that comes to your head.
Yes.
Dead or alive, who's the person you most want to sit down to dinner with?
Oh, well, I've done it. Gloria Steinem.
That is so cool. Very awesome. Favorite city in the world?
New York.
So we're taping in Vegas.
Yeah.
Do you gamble? If so, what game?
Blackjack.
Hey! We played last night and there was some type of double down game that you could play that I had never heard of. It wasn't traditional. I was like, no, I just want the classic blackjack.
I'm a traditionalist. Yeah.
In 30 years, what do you think people will be nostalgic about?
Typewriters.
Oh, love. We're a little nostalgic for them already.
Yeah.
What's the worst advice that anyone has given you?
To wait to raise your hand.
Okay, if your team had to describe your vibe or your energy via a cocktail, what cocktail do you think you'd be?
Oh my God, I'm bad.
If
I'm
you
not
drink or a mocktail?
I drink, but I'm not a. I'm like a tequila on the rocks kind of woman.
So are you straightforward, but with like a bit of sweetness?
Yeah, I'm cool, calm, and collected. They describe me as like a steady hand. Dad vibes.
Love that.
I don't know what drink that would be. Maybe I'm like a whiskey.
You're like, you're
yeah.
something that like stands the test of time.
I stand the test of time. Exactly. I'm going to tell them that. They're going to be like, you're so lame.
I love it. You're like, whatever, give me a drink.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Do you have any totally random skills or hobbies that have nothing to do with your job?
Yeah, I really love to write, actually. Yep,
What do
big
you write?
time. I write poetry.
So,
Yeah.
that's really cool. Do you ever post it or it's just something for you?
I used to publish it a lot, actually. Yeah, now I'm too busy, but back in the day.
One thing that your past self, let's say 10 to 15 years ago, would be shocked to learn about your life today.
That I live in Paris.
You're Emily in Paris, but you're Ariel in Paris. And you actually have a job.
Yeah. My visa makes sense.
Really a job,
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man. Okay, and then last question. Are there any marketing teams from any companies that you really love what they're doing right now or that you're watching that other people should pay attention to?
I actually think the Gemini team's card launch recently was really wonderful. I really love some of the recent work that I've seen from, I think something that's interesting is like Levi's kind of stands the test of time of always making sense.
Yeah.
I think what On is doing for luxury is really brilliant. And I also think that there are some staple brands that continue to just crush.
Yeah.
Like Costco is fucking crushing
Killing
it.
it.
And I love it. Why not?
Yeah.
So I'm here for that.
Love that.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
That's the whole episode.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on and teaching us all about Ledger. Where can people learn more about Ledger and find you all if they wanted to?
So at Ledger, LEDGER for all of our handles. Actually, if you ever get a message from someone that's not that, they are trying to phish or scam you, we will not do that. Or you can go to ledger.com. That has everything you might need. And we have lots of materials for you. So plenty of time. Yeah,
so go learn more. And thank you to our sponsor, Open Fortune, for making this episode possible. And we will see you next time.